What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the dev Q&A. They dropped one yesterday in the official Discord server. They interviewed Nick, the game director for Heroes of Middle-earth, and asked a bunch of questions about what we can expect with the future, how release cadences are figured out, a bunch of different questions about some teams we currently have in the game, what we can expect in terms of what-if scenarios, everything like that. We're going to break that all down in today's video. So if you guys do enjoy this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's dive right into it. So the first thing they pretty much ask right out of the gate is the what-if scenarios. This is something that has been teased a little bit already, but this is a what-if scenario. Like, what if, for example, Gandalf falls to the temptation of the One Ring and he takes it, and we get a Dark Gandalf? And this is something where they don't have anything particular in mind yet, but they are open to exploring them. And Nick does say that he's very interested in talking about Gandalf taking the One Ring, but that's not to say that's going to be a scenario we necessarily have. It's one that he's interested in doing, but this could be really cool stuff. Like, what if Boromir had resisted the temptation of the ring? Like, that one I think would be really interesting, because then that possibly means that it changes up how the Fellowship works. It means the Fellowship probably doesn't splinter as much, and that they all work together to get to Mordor, which would completely change how things happen within the Return of the King and oh gosh, what's the Two Towers? Because we blanked on the second book there for a second, because without the Fellowship splintering off, well then all of a sudden Isengard pretty much will take on Rohan and beat them in the Battle of Helm's Deep, because Gandalf and the other Fellowship members aren't involved. And then that also leads to questions about what happens with the Battle of Pelennor Fields, and does that mean Minas Tirith falls? Like, there's questions about what would happen if the Fellowship wouldn't splinter with that one. And I think this, if Boromir resisted the ring, like that, just what that could mean for the future, or could be like a what-if scenario, I'm really, really interested in that one. I want to see how that plays out. What if Saruman had not been defeated? What if Saruman got the ring? What if they captured Frodo and took him to Saruman, and Saruman took the One Ring? Like, what happens then? So there's really, really cool what-if scenarios, and I like that they're actually going to get the ability to kind of do that. We were worried that they just were tied to the books, and that they had to basically follow the books, and, you know, they couldn't really be, weren't allowed to be free and have creative freedom with that. But being able to have the ability to do these what-if scenarios looks really cool, and I cannot wait to see what they do with that. Another one here, talking about release calendar and characters and content coming up, how often and he's pretty upfront with this. It is not our practice to share all content is coming up ahead of time. This is partly to preserve our ability to move things around and make adjustments without building up expectations we may have to break. You know, things happen, game delays. You know, they're working on a game mode, something's going wrong with it, they've got to put more testing in, and then they have to put out an announcement that says, oh, this has been delayed, and then people get upset. So I do appreciate that they are not going to tell us as soon as something's coming, like when it's coming. They're not always telling us what's coming, because then we start to get this expectations of things have to drop on XYZ dates. And, you know, that gives them a little more time to kind of figure out things on the back end. That said, we are going to spend some time figuring out when and how long to run big events like Elrond's Adventure and the Mines of Moria raid, as mentioned in our most recent Journey Ahead. We have to strike a balance between operational flexibility in the day-to-day and getting players excited about what's coming up. There's some art and some science, and we'll discover what works best for us all together. And that's totally understandable as well. Remember, this game hasn't even been out for a month yet. So they're still trying to figure out some of the things and how they want to be upfront, and how they want to talk about what comes out, or how they want to tell us about what's coming out, and how soon they want to tell us about what's coming out. And I do find it interesting they don't know how long Lord Elrond's event is going to run yet. I would assume a week, but it looks like we may get more than a week. They probably haven't made up their mind, which is interesting. But we know for sure that Elrond is coming this month. We'll talk about that here in a moment. Is there a current cadence to the Road Ahead blogs? they're going to be once a quarter, pretty much. And that's fine. It gives us a 3-month look ahead into what's coming in the game. We already had that with Lord Elrond and Mines of Moria announcement like a few weeks back. So we know what's going to be happening there. What about buffs and nerfs being a regular thing for Heroes of Middle-earth? Nerfs should not be a regular thing. This is something that they learned with Galaxy of Heroes. There was some significant nerfs early on in that game, and that one of those nerfs almost made me walk away from Galaxy of Heroes way back in the early days. Luminara, she was a fantastic character. She would heal on critical hits on your team, and then they ended up just nerfing her because people were like, they just thought she was just too strong, and she was carrying me through different modes. And yeah, when they nerfed her, I was less than thrilled, and I was not the only one. Nerfs are a tricky thing in that you have to be careful with them, because if people spend a lot of gear and gold, especially since gear and gold is not exactly a bountiful resource in this game, it's gonna feel real bad to have you build up this character just to then see it get nerfed into the ground. So I'm glad that they're not planning on doing a lot of nerfs. The general stance is that if you've placed your time and resources into a character, they should only get better with time. However, if we discover disruptive behavior outside our design intent, then we may intervene and alter the character. Again, totally understandable. This has happened. The Sith raid really... oh man, that Sith raid in Galaxy Heroes really did bring a lot of unintentional character mechanics into the light. Like, for instance, there was a tank with Stormtrooper Rohan. When he took damage, he would give turn meter to your team. And there was a mechanic in Phase 3 of the Sith raid where you would just constantly take damage and he was just supercharging your team. And they had to nerf that because it was just allowing people to instantly clear the raid within like a week of the raid being launched. And that's just, they just can't have that. So there's things like that where if there's like disruptive behavior, infinite loops, that's the big term, infinite loops right there, where your team's just going over and over and over and the other team can't do anything, that's when they're going to step in, nerf things, maybe change how mechanics work, undermine the meta in a bad way, play patterns we think are harmful to the community. So yeah, they will nerf only if it calls for it, in that it's going to break the game in some pretty bad way. Of course, this invites a question, why to get out of the community? A simple answer for that is, I don't even have to even read this. I know the answer to this already is there's lots more players than there are developers. And this is something that, yeah, developers can do all they can to catch bugs, but sometimes things just get out because they just don't have the amount of people to test it like we do. So yeah, there will be things that get out, understandable, but if it's going to turn to Marvel Strike Force where everything's broken, then yeah, people are going to get very upset. So as long as they keep their QA up and don't let things get out of hand with bugs, we should be okay at that point. I mean, we've already talked about Shagrat's lead, and they're on top of that. They're working on that. So that is on their docket for things to fix, so we'll see how that plays out. Buffs on hand should be more regular by comparison. If you play Galaxy Heroes, you know that we regularly intervene on older kits, aka reworks. Give them a dust off and send them back out into the world. Mace Windu is a big meme with that. Mace Windu got a rework, not very good. Got another rework, really, really good. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Here's one thing: character customization systems. There will be stat-based character customization systems coming to Heroes Middle-earth in the future. No timeline set on that yet. Basically, this is going to be like your mod system from Galaxy Heroes, where you can put like different sets of mods on them to increase like offense or crit chance or crit damage. Hopefully, we don't see speed drop in this. I'm really not a fan of speed mods. Speed mods are kind of they kind of broke the thing in bad ways. So hopefully, if we do see this character customization, we do not see speed in any way with it. Are there any plans to have seasonal approach to shards? Meaning that will shards get shaken up every few months? Will there be like seasonal things? Basically, there is no plan for that. So the shard we have right now is a shard we're going to stay with. That's pretty much how it's worked in Galaxy of Heroes as well. I'm perfectly okay with this. I'm okay with us not having to shake things up every few months in Arena. We get that already with new teams and new meta teams. There's no point in making us all move to different shards, and it's just going to cause mass chaos. yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that. What inspired Lord Elrond to be the first choice? Well, it's because basically, you know, he leads the Fellowship on the road. You know, they get to Rivendell and he forms the Fellowship there and he sends them off. So they thought it was a good idea to kind of have him be one of the first legendaries here. Also, note they do note here that he's a ring bearer, and if you've seen Gollum's kit has synergy with ring bearers. So I'm wondering if we do get Gollum from the Mines of Moria, if there's going to be like a Gollum and Elrond kind of team that we get. That'd be really cool. Do they work closely with Galaxy of Heroes? And yeah, they do. They talk with them. There's lessons learned from Galaxy Heroes, and they're using what they've learned from that game to build off of this game. What are the plans for character farmability cadence? There is a cadence, but I don't have it for you yet. If you've played Galaxy of Heroes, I believe, unless it's changed, a marquee event, I think, what is it? 1 to 2 months after the marquee event, they then become available in like shard shipments. So like in our supply shipments that we see in game, we'll eventually be able to see them show up in the supply section. So for instance, if you go here, I think, yeah, they'll show up, get out of here. They'll show up in supplies, and then another 2 to 3 months after that, they become farmable. I believe that's how the character cadence is in Galaxy Heroes. Someone will have to correct me if I'm wrong on that. But they do have a cadence. There will be a cadence, but they don't have it ready to share yet. Well, also, there's a similar question about the content calendar. We have ideas, but some of it is still baking. You hear something in the future. Are there plans to improve the resolution of the game and its art? And yeah, this is a big one. This is a big complaint I see from a lot of players, and they talk about that here quite a bit. A couple different questions in this vein about the art, and try to answer them as best they can. We are committed to the art in the style of Heroes of Middle-earth. We believe we've found a style that represents the literary works of Tolkien very well, balancing the light and the dark, the whimsy and the menace. We believe it is a world ripe for interpretation and reinterpretation, and we are excited to be a part of its story. Second, the game has been developed to be played on mobile devices and not emulation software. We support the game on mobile devices and not emulation software. There are multiple quality settings for the game, and some emulation softwares don't use the highest setting, which I can confirm. BlueStacks does not run this game the best. So yeah, that does make sense. Like, my S22 does look better than what BlueStacks is putting out, which is kind of a shame. This will adapt. Third, with live service games, this will adapt and change over time. So as we grow, as device specifications change and improve, as the industry shifts, we will react to it. You see the same method in our other games. We'll likely adopt a similar approach on this one. They did do this with Galaxy Heroes. I remember they did update character models. They started making character models more detailed, and then of course they put out a Rey Skywalker with like a potato for a face. So there was a little bit of a meme there, but overall, I believe their character models have been more impressive over time. So the art style is not going to change. You know, we're still going to have like these kind of characters. Maybe eventually we get more detail on them. Like, God, man, it looks so bad on BlueStacks. It looks much better on my S22, but yeah, I would not expect this to change anytime soon. Yeah, maybe we get more detail, but yeah, we're gonna have the same kind of style. And I know players don't want to hear that, and I understand. Like, yeah, I do wish the style was better, but it's what we got. So it is what it is. There's nothing else I can say to that. Are there plans or reasons for that soundtrack for Heroes of Middle-earth? No. I didn't even know people were interested in the soundtrack for Heroes of Middle-earth. Anyways, let's see. We're gonna move on to, are there any new game modes coming out before raids? No. That's just to be expected. But here's one I do want to dive in a little bit on. In your view, is the Road to Rivendell team performing expectations? And this is an interesting one because in my video talking about best or like beginner mistakes, I make it very clear. Road to Rivendell is not a team you should pursue as a beginner player because they just don't perform well at the beginning. Now, this changed drastically from the beta in that the Road to Rivendell was the beginner team. Like, they worked great out of the gate. And things changed up quite a bit. They changed what level abilities do what. They've changed stats a little bit as well, I believe. So right now, as a beginner team, Road to Rivendell is not very good. Now, I'm seeing people throw them in. Like, I faced a 15k power Road to Rivendell team in Arena the other day. And up front, they are very, very annoying. And I do think Sam, I think, is going to be a very underrated character for a lot of people. I'm very optimistic on Sam as max level. Like, he can be incredibly annoying. There's probably not a more annoying 1v1 character to fight in the game right now, because he's always given himself nimble on a short cooldown. He's blinding, he's healing, he's retaliating. And then he gains fortitude, which increases his resistance. So he's very difficult to hit, to damage, to take down. Sam is kind of he's just annoying to fight with. And you can see, before they start getting picked off, you can see like the synergy with this team looks really, really good. And I'm very bullish on them for endgame content. I'm very confident that they're going to be a very good Moria raid team. I do think that we're going to see a lot of use out of them in terms of endgame content, but for leveling them up, they're very squishy. They take a lot of ability materials to really get going with their mechanics. It's one where just right now, they're not good for a lot of people, and part of that also has to be with the fact that, you know, gear and gold is very difficult to come by these days. So it's hard to gear up a team like Road to Rivendell, and if you do, you're now suddenly way behind, and that's why I'm not big on using them as a beginner team, because yeah, there's just better teams out there to be throwing your gear on. Like, campaign teams are much better. Now, Nick does talk about this a little bit. We monitor the performance of different teams and characters pretty religiously. Our intent with Road to Rivendell has a few beats to it, one of which is the longer form value of this team in existing modes, along with the value in some future modes. Given the timelines we are talking about, we are monitoring as players mature into using the Road to Rivendell team in those places and evaluating from there. So far, everything we are seeing is lining up with our intent. We are sorry to hear that they aren't meeting everyone's expectations in regards to the campaigns. We'll take this feedback into consideration as we continue to evaluate the team. I think this means that it's, yeah, number one, you gotta really max out the team, which sucks. And, you know, I'm hoping CG figures out this gear and gold, these bottlenecks, because they're absurd. Because, like, I want to use Road to Rivendell, but I can't, because I know that there's other teams that I gotta throw gear on first. Like, all my light gear is going on to Rivendell now, and you know, we gotta figure out what's going on there. So it's unfortunate that we aren't getting the best return out of Rivendell right now, but I do think that once we get them maxed out and really going, I think people are going to be impressed with the team. I'm very bullish on them. We'll see how things play out there. How do you plan on making the LOTR experience unique and set apart from Galaxy Heroes? The answer is they have plans. Not going to really go into what else is going to be there. You know, I imagine we'll see some things in terms of, like, we'll see similar game modes. Like, we got raids coming, but raids I think are going to be a little bit different from what I'm seeing here. Raids are going to be a little bit different from what we're seeing with Galaxy of Hero raids. We'll probably see a guild versus guild kind of battle at some point. They do mention that there will be no, like, mounted arena, so, like, no ship arena. It's not a hard no, but it's incredibly unlikely. It would be really weird to try and get, like, a mounted arena or anything like that in this game. I don't know how they would work that out. It just doesn't make sense. Ships make sense in Star Wars, but not so much in Lord of the Rings. Plans for cross progression. I playing on Apple and Android at the same time. They are planning on that, and they're hoping to bring that to us soon. More large creatures such as Balrog, Shelob, or dragons. There are large characters right now that kind of tops out at trolls right now, but that doesn't mean it won't change in the future. They talked about Treebeard in their hypothetical. Treebeard and Ents would make sense for light side large creatures. We don't have any large creatures for light side right now, so Ents would make sense there. Talked about wargs, eagles, etc. Yeah, pretty cool. Balrog is probably very large or huge in size, and Smaug is definitely huge. So we're not going to see them anytime soon as someone we can use in game. There'll probably be raid bosses. In fact, Balrog is probably going to be in the Mines of Moria raid. And for the moment, though, his creatures remain regulated to boss content. Makes sense. If you're bringing a character from the movies, books, or series, Treebeard, which is funny because they talked about that. The Witch King, which has been data mined as a legendary. And Durin 1, which would be cool. Yeah, we need more dwarves. Do you like capybaras? I automatically know exactly who. Bobbin, yeah, Bobbin definitely asked this question. Pizza Deep Dish. That's really there. Also, if you're interested in looking for a job, you can apply. They're looking for senior tech artist, senior animator. And that's really kind of it in terms of Heroes of Middle-earth. There was also confirmation from Hemophilus. Yeah, every time I look at that name, I will keep saying hemophiliac. But basically, Elrond and Eldon are both coming in June. So make sure that you guys are ready for this. Again, they have not said how long the Elrond event is going to last. I would expect at least a week. Legendaries usually last about a week. So if you haven't yet, you gotta be working on your elves. It hasn't been announced yet, but it's been data mined, and it's very likely it's gonna be elves. And we could be wrong. We'll see. But yeah, make sure you're working on your elves if you haven't already. As you can see, I've got 3 of them ready to go now. Layla is probably not gonna make it in time, but Lomian's gonna be close. But yeah, that's gonna kind of wrap it up for me. What did you guys think about the Q&A? Were there more questions you guys wanted answered? Were there other questions that you were hoping to see answered there in that Q&A? Let me know down below. Again, if you guys have enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys next time.